Hi, Justine. Welcome to the Genetic Genius Podcast. I'm so happy to have you on today.
Hi, Dr. Lulu. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. Before we dive deep into talking all about success, which is an amazing subject, I can't wait to talk about more with you. I'd love for you to talk about your story, your kind of like road to how you got to where you are, your place on the planet, your impact, because I think it's a powerful story.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so humbled by your words. And it's crazy because so many times we ask ourselves personally, the little gremlins in our mind, we're like, what does my story matter? Right? How do I actually create an impact? And so my story goes back to a lot of those thoughts. And it started for me, like I shared with Lulu off screen, my original career was in dentistry. And I was absolutely loving it, killing it, living my dream as a newly married couple. And everything changed when I got to the next level in my life, which was having children and becoming a parent and being like, well, what do I really want to have for them in their life? And what do I really want to live out with them? And so it actually came to the point where I was like, you know what, in order to honor my priorities, I have to let go of this job. And that was a mutual decision. People are like, oh, did he make you? No, he did not make me do that. I did that because I wanted to. And I think women, if this is something on your heart and you're listening to this today, I think it's one of those things that if it's in your heart and it's something that you want to do, there's no reason that you can't do it. You just have to do it. And as I was successful in one area of my life, I found myself being totally freaked out and scared because I was actually achieving the next level of something that I had no experience in, being a mother for the first time ever. So I quit my job the day before my son was born. And I literally changed my world from being a full-time working wife to now a first-time mother. I was dealing with chronic pain and a huge transition like anything. And over the course of the next couple of months, I was so depressed. I was so depressed because my purpose had changed, but my mission hadn't. And the divide and the lack of clarity between there was just extremely difficult to put it in simple words. And I had to ask myself, what made me happy anymore, right? I literally have a beautiful child, a miracle in my hands. I'm living in like so many of the good things, right? You should be so happy. You should be so blessed, but I wasn't happy. And so I had that moment where I was like, what made me happy? How can I, find that in my new life? And it took me back to volunteering at a dental convention. And every single person there was providing dental care for free. And we were there because we wanted to be there. We were there because that was our mission, to bring, not only a confident smile back to, someone's life, but truly take away their pain, whether that was an extraction or cavity, what have you, right?
Right.
The whole mission was to give. And I was like, I just remember feeling so fulfilled after I did that. I got to do that again. But I was like, well, how do I do that with this cute little monkey in my arms? Like, I can't do that. And so I was like, okay, plan B. I'm going to figure out how to do this. I'm going to plan how to do this online. And so I'm not doing anything dental related at the moment, but it started off as a search. And so I went from, trying to figure out what the word entrepreneur meant to what a podcast was, to actually owning my own business and becoming a virtual assistant in the online space, to being asked to coach. And now I mentor men and women across the world. And I'm just so humbled to be where I'm at because I desire to change. And I decided that I wasn't going to be satisfied with this lack of happiness and fulfillment. Because like I said, I had what I wanted, but I didn't have in my heart, I did not have what I wanted. Right. And so it's like, how am I going to go about and create that? So many people describe it as, how do you be your own superhero? It really just took the being like, hey, do I want this? Yeah, I do. What are you going to do about it? Right. And so that's a huge part of my story. Some people call me the Just Do It girl. I'm in no way taking Nike's slogan, but really encouraging you to think about what those words actually could mean when you take action today. So that's a little bit about me.
Oh, I love it. What a great story. It's all about when we have the courage, which it sounds like it was a big part of your journey, having that courage to step out into the unknown.
Can I call that out too? Like courage means that there was fear.
Right. Exactly.
Guys, I've been scammed. I have been hustled. I have been there and back again a time or two.
Mm,
And it has been far from easy, many tears and many frustrations, many heartaches, even between my spouse and myself.
mm,
He's like, you're not, people don't deserve your goodness out there if they're going to treat you like this. Well, that's
mm.
great. Thank you for that love. And he wants to love and protect me. But at the same time, I still feel called to do something more. I
Mm,
still feel that call, and come all the high waters, I'll take them and I'll swim through them. But it's one of those things where it's like, if you have that courage, that means that you overcame the fear. So I'm not saying that
yeah.
I did it without fear, because courage is doing it even if you fear it anyway.
That's so true. Yeah. And sometimes that's the way the growth happens, right? When we have that fear, it's the only way
Yes.
because it's a stepping out into something new.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the biggest thing for me is I had to come to realize and appreciate, Lulu, that with every next level or new venture or new opportunity, like I shared with you, we got opportunities coming down the road. There is a level of fear that goes with every single stage. And I was on
Mhm.
Clubhouse this morning talking about imposter syndrome. There's a level of that unworthiness that you feel at every level, not because you didn't overcome it, but because it comes with every level.
Right.
And I just think that that's something that, I don't know. I think so many people are held back by that alone. And
Yeah.
I'm grateful that I've had and put myself in the place for mentors and leaders and other people that are further up the mountain than me to reach down and be like, hey, it's all good. That's the right
Right.
direction. And be open to listening to that, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, that's so true. And, we're going to be talking a lot about from that entrepreneurial perspective today, which I think, or I do think and have thought about that before having you on, which is so important because so many people and the listeners out there are having this shift because they've now, because
Mhm.
of COVID, have now had to take this whole new perspective of work.
Yeah.
And I think it's important because they're suffering with different aspects. So I thought it would
Mm,
be so key for us to talk about that transformation
yeah.
aspect and what goes into like forming that and
Mm,
how you can have the best foot forward for the best self-care and move into it.
yes. Absolutely. Well, and you brought up so many great points, Dr. Lou. Like literally, there's so many points we could pull from that. The first one that really hit home for me and what you just shared is that COVID is making a whole lot of closed doors that we thought were seemingly closed. Like the curtains are falling, like there never was a door. It was
Right.
just an appearance of a perception that we had. There
Mm-hmm.
are countless opportunities that are truly open to you, to me, to everyone listening to this. And what we're being challenged with right now is, do we walk through those doors? Is that door
Mm-hmm.
for me? Is that
Right.
door for you? And what could that mean for me? What could that mean for other people? And I think the number one thing to create clarity in
Mm-hmm.
this time of uncertainty, because it still is very uncertain. And I don't want you to feel, if you're feeling like it's foggy right now, it's okay,
Right.
because it is foggy right
Yeah, the
now.
soup is
But
thick.
right, exactly. Oh, you're so right. And I think the number one thing that we have to remember is that we can't control the external forces.
Mm-hmm.
We can only control the inner forces.
Right.
And so when it comes to deciding these new doors and new opportunities and all these things that could be blessings coming your way, you have to figure out who it is you are. What is your identity, right? Who are you? What is it that you desire? And that's
Mm-hmm.
why I ask so many times. One of the first things I ask someone is, what is your definition of success?
Mm-hmm.
Not because I'm looking to pick it apart, but I'm looking to know what drives you and what you're after so that you can use those as directions. Because, right,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have I love to use this metaphor too, if you don't have a destination or address to put in your GPS, I could tell you I live in Minnesota, but you're never going to get to my house.
That's right.
So it's one of those things that if you're going to be looking for something specific and you're looking for that security within yourself and in who you are, the number one way that you're going to have to create that is by actually defining what it is that you are desiring out of your life. And so I think 2020 as a whole made people take a step back and be like, whoa, this is where I'm at. Is this what I want? Is this what I'm hoping for? Is this the future I want to create? Is this the life I want for my kids? If you're
Mm-hmm.
not watching this video, I'm literally holding my son in my arms during this video. This is what I wanted. This is
Mm-hmm.
what I wanted. This is how I'm creating it. I'm not saying that to, put myself on a pedestal. I'm saying that to be like, I'm in the trenches deciding this daily. with you, because it takes intentional action every single day for us to do that. So in another thought on what Dr. Lulu was saying, when everything is changing, you know, what's a constant that we can create? What is something that we can create that doesn't change, right? And I think that that can boil down to perspectives, that can boil down to gratitude, mindsets, you name it. But in a world of so many things changing, we have to create some kind of foundation that is solid and something that we can hold to. And I love that she brought that out, because that's such a powerful testament for someone else to be listening to today.
Yeah, so key. Those some great points there. And you're so right. We do have to have like a road, and that comes with, you know, being an entrepreneur or being in a chronic state of illness. And we have to have
Yes.
that destination to, and I work all the time with patients talking about the vision. You know, what do you
Yes.
want to be when you're healthy, or what do you want to be with when you're successful? If you don't have that vision, you're never going to manifest it. You have to be
Yes.
able to see, even if it seems, you know, foggy in the beginning, or if it changes along the way too, that's totally fine, because it usually does.
Yes, I love that you mentioned change. That's huge. That's so huge. And I think with change, I love the word evolve, because so many times as you get to a certain level, you know, like even on your health journey, maybe you're like, oh, I'm going to walk and I'm going to use walking as a way for me to lose weight. Well, maybe you find out that you love running. Like that wasn't in the picture in the beginning because you couldn't run. Maybe you
Right.
couldn't run, and that's okay. But now that you've walked, you can run. And it's like, oh my gosh, now this is what I want to do. So
Totally.
with that change, like the change that you've created through the action that you've taken, now that journey can evolve and that vision can become even more one of depth, right? And so I think that was just a powerful ad that you shared there, that, you know, it's going to change and evolve, but it's going to grow with you.
Right.
So that's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
true. Okay, let's talk about success, because we mentioned it. And I'd love for you
absolutely.
to kind of like, well, you said about how working with clients defining theirs, but I'd like for you to just kind of find like your definition of success and what that looks like for you.
Absolutely. So number one, I'm going to tell you guys, it has evolved. It has evolved with me. But as of right now, here as we speak, me and Dr. Lou having a great time in our Zoom room, right? The number one thing for me with success is becoming the best version of myself every single day.
Mm,
And that stems from a couple other situations that I'll share with you in a minute. But that's living life on my terms, unapologetic for who I am and what I'm all about. I am all about God first, family second, and business third. That's who I am. That's my jam. And I will be competitive in volleyball if we ever play. You know, so it's one of those things where I want to make sure that my priorities come first, because I'm not going to get a second chance. I get one shot at life, and you have the same thing to figure out. And I could go into depth, you know, about financial freedom and things like that, but those are the main points about success without giving you my whole like journal entries of what success means to me on so many levels. But the reason that this is such a passionate topic for me, and why I've really brought this into my business, especially for women, is because I actually almost passed away in February of 2020. I had a fever of 109.3. By God's grace alone, I'm here. I should not be here. I did not black out, have seizures, you name it. I'm okay. It was due to a asymptomatic infection, and I had no symptoms. And it was one of those fluky things that never happens, but happened to me.
yeah.
And by God's grace, I heard the nurse say the numbers. I'm looking at the thermometer as she's checking me out, right? I'm sweating like a dog, laying in the bed, just being like, this has gotta be like, come on guys, like this is terrible. But they had no answers for what was wrong with me. So we were in just that waiting phase, right? She looked at me and said, I gotta take your temperature again. And I was like, what? And she's like, I think it might be broken. She shook the thermometer. I was like, hospitals don't have broken thermometers. I might have a fever, but I'm not stupid. And so she took my temperature again, and she's like, that's way too high. Push some buttons. People came in and blah, blah, blah. And then she told me the number, and I was like, Lord, I'm not done. I'm not done. You can't do this to me. I'm not done. And I felt like that moment of like, I think of football, like a player being benched. And I was just like, coach, I'm not done yet. Like, put me back in, coach. Like,
I
don't
want to
do
be back
that
in the game.
like, and the reason that came so apparent to me in that moment was because I am young. I am young, and I did absolutely nothing wrong. I was doing everything right. I was watching my health, getting sleep, taking care of my mental, spiritual, and physical being, and something went crazy wrong. It just did. And so it's one of those things where now I don't think we can be successful when I want you to be successful now, because I don't know when that when will be and if you'll be here for that when.
Right.
And that's because I was there. And I don't want you to be held up by that. And whatever someone else is telling you the definition of success is, that goes into that imposter syndrome, that comparison mindset. That stuff it's something that I've dealt with, and it's something I'm so done with. And I feel like after that happened, not only did I change and improve as a person, but it just lit my fire that much brighter, because it's something that I'm passionate about. So people are like, well, wow, you talk on stage about this all the time. I'm like, because I don't know if I have tomorrow, because
Hmm.
I don't know what tomorrow looks like. And I'm so excited to be talking to Dr. Lulu today, because I intentionally wanted to talk to her today. She's
Hmm.
helping people across the world do things like this all the time. I wanted to be a part of her world today. And
Hmm.
that's the same for anyone else. So, at a long answer, that is how I define success.
That's great. What a powerful story. Oh my gosh, Justine. Yeah, it's amazing how many people that I interview that have such a shift of health, like that has catapulted them into this amazing new point in their life, and that a lot of, I had an interviewed someone this past week who had two near death experiences. And,
Ah,
I mean, it's just like, it's just does change your world when you have that, especially when you have children, have
yes.
that really like eye-opening experience. Okay, so we have the success defined in from your
Yes.
yes, your amazing story. And let's talk a little bit about the fear factor, because I think that is a key that you were talking about before. And when people have that goal in mind, whether that's they want to be an entrepreneur or they
Yeah.
want to achieve optimal health, how can people embrace that fear? Because I think that you touch base on a little bit, but it's such a huge component about, you know, having that fear. How do you move through the fear? How do and being just like, you just don't shut the door on it and be like, well, okay, I'm not going to even read that chapter.
Mhm. I would love for people to think about this illustrated through like a picture. Like, if you imagine putting on a shirt or a sweatshirt, right? It's you're in a white t-shirt and you're going to put on a black sweatshirt. That could be the fear. Are you going to actually embrace it,
Mm.
or are you going to let it, are you going to leave the sweatshirt off and be like, hey, I'm warm, or I need to be warm, and it's not actually, you're not actually embracing it for what it could be. So when I use that analogy of putting on like a sweatshirt, it's embracing what it is, because it's a good thing. Fear is a part of humans. it's
Mm.
it's it's a way that saves us from death so many times.
Right.
Even if you are an adrenaline junkie, we love you. But still, so when you think of fear, as the human putting on that sweatshirt, it's one of those things where it's like, what is that fear actually going to do for you? It's going to warm you up. That
Mm.
fear is keeping you aware of what's going on, but then the choice is then to use it as a force. So when I think of fear, the opposite is courage or faith, right?
Mhm.
When I think of opportunity, many people think opportunity is risk.
Mm.
It's, where are you pointing your energy? Where are you allowing that to flow? Because that's going to define what that situation has for you. And I'm not saying bad things don't happen, because bad things do happen, but
Mhm.
you are only controlled. Like we said earlier, you are only in control how your part works, not
Mhm.
how anybody else is. You are not responsible for their response to any of it. You're only responsible for you, which is more than enough work, let me tell you, especially
Right,
as a mom.
totally. Yeah.
Especially as a mom. Goodness gracious. That's another conversation. But with that in mind, it's one of those things. So when there is fear present, that can be the fuel to your faith.
Mhm.
Because you can be like, so for me, I am a believer. I can be like, and I was on the deathbed where I was like, Lord, I don't know what the heck you're doing. This isn't funny, but I know that I have more to do. And I believe that you will give me this opportunity if I'm asking, if I am, offering. And I love the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi so much. Use me as an instrument of your peace.
Mm.
This isn't about me anymore. Like, yes, it's about me, but it's about so much more than me. It's like having to go through me to impact other people, being that pebble that drops in a river that creates ripples that lead to waves, right? That's what it's all about. So I
Mm.
think when people are talking about the fear, it comes with such shame.
Mhm.
It comes with such shame. So kind of like thinking that black is a color of shame. No, it's just another color. It's
Right.
just another color. I wear black all the time. Of course, I'm wearing white the one day that we're talking about wearing a black shirt. But genuinely speaking, when people think of fear, they're ashamed of it. And
Mm.
then they want to get rid of it because they think it's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It is not something to be ashamed about. And it is actually a force that can be used for good. So I would love to just reconstruct that perspective on what you perceive fear to be so that you can utilize it as a power source versus a setback. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, no, totally. That's great. And it's so true that when we use that fuel, because when we're doing something new, we can have that little aspect of us. It's, just when you're like a little kid and you're like, okay, I'm going to learn how to ride a bike. Well, it's something new and that adrenaline does, kick in, but
Exactly.
it's part of what makes us who we are, but it gives us the strength, like you're saying, that courage to move forward. And when
Right.
we have that fear aspect, it's almost like a switch that turns on that is like pinching us like we're awake, right? And
Yes.
so if we did if we didn't have that like a little aspect, when we go on, it would just be like the day by day by day and on
Yep.
autopilot. So it's nice when we can have that little bit of like, oh yeah, things are
Excitement.
shifting. Yeah,
Yes,
excitement.
there's
Yeah.
a chance for change. And I think that,
Hmm.
even 2020 really was a chance for change for people in ways that they never anticipated
Hmm.
because they were stuck, or maybe they were forced to leave the workplace that was, a toxic environment,
Hmm.
but they needed the money. But, God took that question out of the picture for them because he was like, nope, you're done. This door is closed.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Like there's so many different ways to look at it. Like, yes, my heart goes out to everyone that has been removed from their source of income or lost loved ones and different things throughout this.
Hmm.
Absolutely. I see you, I hear you, and I feel you. It has impacted us, like you shared so truly, on levels that we all can relate. We
Hmm.
all can relate in some way, shape, or form, right? So, but realizing that everything is happening for you
Hmm.
gives you the power over the experience that you have through it, not because it's a success in everybody else's life, but because that's how you choose to look at it, which is why you can be successful every day of your life.
Right. Yeah. And I like what you shared about before too, is just being in the moment, not
Yes,
knowing what tomorrow is going to bring. If you want to make success for today, being grateful for what you have does make that successful change. And so
absolutely.
I know that the self-care is a big part of kind of what brought you to this place where you are now. And I'd love for you to kind of talk about that a little bit more about how that, from that beginning phase as you were becoming this amazing entrepreneur that you are now, what kind of shifted that in your self-care perspective?
So I would just love to add to, she said I'm a wonderful entrepreneur. You guys, I'm always becoming, and I'm so humbled by her words. I don't have it all figured out, but I'm committed to figuring it out. And I think that's the defining difference between people in this space, is when you're actually committed to the process versus the destination.
Right.
Because many people will, claim a title or bestowed a title, and that's not what it's about. It's not about titles. It's about the person that you become through that experience. And I think the biggest thing for me in the self-care journey is, it wasn't something that I realized I needed. I thought that self-care was not necessary because I'm a huge empath. I'm a
Mhm.
huge giver. And it's one of those things where like I shared, one of the greatest moments I've ever had was when I was serving other people at a
Mhm.
magnitude level where I was just like, oh my gosh, over the moon. This was amazing. I could do this every day. But at the same time, I was like, not looking at the fact that I wasn't putting my own oxygen mask on. Like, you
Mhm.
think of an airplane, you guys, if
Right.
you don't put on your oxygen mask, you can't really help the person next to you because you're probably going. So it's one of those things where, for me, realizing that I need to take that step back and identify what my oxygen was, what it was that filled my cup up, what filled my love tank, or however you want to refer to it as, so that instead of pouring into the lives of others, I could overflow into the lives of others. And that's the defining difference. So many people, and I still catch myself sometimes saying, can I pour into you on this? No, I want
Right.
to overflow into you on this, because it's not taking away from me. It's stuff that I have extra. It's
Mhm.
more than enough. I have more than enough energy. I have more than enough, time to share and to grow with people. So it's one of those things. I think when I realized that I needed to take that step back, that was the first freeing point. So if you're listening to this and you don't know what self-care means for you, a tangible practice would to be like, hey, what is it that I appreciate? And the trick on this too, if you don't know what you appreciate, you probably know really well what you don't.
That's right.
And that's really weird how we do that as humans, but it's true.
Right. It's easy
You're
for us to
like,
say what we
I
don't
do
want.
not appreciate the dirty socks in the kitchen. Okay, acts of service is probably going to be one of the ones that you appreciate. And there's nothing wrong with that. And when I say acts of service, I'm referring to the 5 love languages. And if you guys don't know about those, it's a really great way to understand those around you, as well as to know yourself on a very intimate level. And they also have that for kids. So as a mother, that was a big one for me too. But I think the biggest thing is, yes, identifying that you need to, sort out what it is, but then making it a priority, scheduling it first in your calendar. And so many people feel the guilt and shame around that. But the number one thing for me is that it's not selfish, it's selfless, because it allows you to show up as the best version of yourself as a wife, mother, doctor, sister, brother, mentor, you name it. And you'd otherwise be robbing them of the full potential that you could bring to the table. And especially in the entrepreneur space where there's coaches and there's so many different things, you're usually paying for stuff. So I take it really seriously that if I'm not getting enough sleep, getting the proper hygiene and water and taking care of myself, I held up my jug in case you guys are wondering what she's chuckling at. I'm actually not serving my people. Just to put it straight, it's not fun, it's ugly, it's not something I'm proud of. But if I'm not taking care of me, I'm not taking care of them. And when I was able to reset that my mentality and priority in myself, it set me free, because I was like, oh, taking care of me takes care of them. Wow, that's what I wanted all along, but I didn't know how to achieve it. So I was able to reframe that mindset, attack it full on, keep it a priority, and know that whatever it was that grew with me, because my self-care has changed. I went from one child to 2 kids. So now it's like life has changed, but I'm able to grow with it. And you have to give yourself the space to check in on that. So I think the biggest part of self-care for anyone listening today is that you need it. Regardless of who you are, you need it, but you may need something different, and that's okay. Define what it is that you need, grow with it, and make sure it's a priority in your life and business.
Yeah, that's so key. And I talk to my patients all the time about, you need to be selfish,
Yes.
especially when from that female perspective, because so many times we give, because we're caregivers, we take care of the
And
family,
nurturers. Yes.
nurturers. But
Yes.
when it comes to especially chronic disease, we really have to take a step back, like you said, and reevaluate what's going on. And and like you said, scheduling is really key. And sometimes people, when they're overwhelmed, they don't even have time to like, I can't even find a calendar. Right. But even if it's like writing it on your refrigerator, whatever it takes, you have to be like, okay, I'm going to take 5 minutes and I'm going to go for a walk, whatever it is. You have got to find a way to do the self-care, and and make it a priority. I totally agree.
Well, and I think it comes down to another point I'd love to add based on where your thought process was going, is awareness. If you realize that you're maybe not where you need to be, give yourself the 30 seconds to breathe and reset. I love to encourage people to do 10 push-ups when they have bad energy. They're frustrated with something that's not going your way. That happens a lot in business, you guys. Stuff changes in the blink of an eye. How do you handle it? Use that energy. I'm like, you got to get that energy out, because keeping it in is not going to be healthy for you or for your health, in mind, body, or soul. Genuinely, it's not. So how can you get it out? I was like, push-ups, they're not going to hurt you.
Right. Yeah.
Do your 10 push-ups, come up, take a deep breath, and be like, all right, here we go again.
I got this.
Exactly. And so many times, I work with Dean Graziosi as a coach and leader in his communities. And it's one of those things, they talk about your war cry, figuring out what it is, just to like whatever that is that sets you on fire and helps you feel empowered to tackle whatever it is that's in your way. That's huge. That's huge. If it's a person, please don't do war cry on the person unless they know that it's all good. You might scare some people, but it's one of those things that finding ways to condition that awareness to support what it is you were doing intentionally is going to be a foundational habit that you will thank yourself forever for.
Totally. And I really like what you said too about, finding that voice, because that's so key in that part of self-care and really
Yes.
establishing your place and
Mhm.
being able to know, like, okay, this is my voice and hear me as I'm
Yes.
making my place in the successful world or the success of my healthcare. And so what are some of the self-care techniques that you used and you recommend having in not only in kind of like the entrepreneurial world, which we have
Mhm.
different, I think they overlap, right?
Yes, they
And yeah,
do. They
and
so
so
do.
they so do. And so if you could just kind of, what are your top 5 self-care tips that you have that you really yourself use in that self-care arena?
That's such a good question. My top 5. I think the number one thing for me that I know grounds me in all areas of my life and business is my faith, is
Mm,
being connected to something more than me and knowing that God is definitely the reason I'm here. So when I think of how that alludes to my self-care, it's time and prayer. I'll be
mhm,
honest. And there were
mhm,
days that I didn't make that a priority, let alone my morning routine or evening routine. And I was off, so off. And some people will, maybe their meditation or different forms of things. I guess for me, I call it prayer. I'm
mhm,
Catholic, traditional Catholic, and that's who I am.
mhm.
So I would say that my faith is probably one of the biggest things, but how that correlates to self care is time and prayer because I don't have to carry it all. And
Right.
that's a way for me to surrender and release as well.
Mhm,
So I think that's a huge one. Another point for me is communication,
mhm,
especially with my spouse. So I am married, but if you are not married, finding the person that you are closest to and being able to really openly communicate and be like, hey, I need you to just listen to this
mhm,
part. I'm
mhm,
venting, or saying, hey, I need you to support me here, or hey, I'm feeling devastated, or hey, I'm feeling broken, whatever the case it is, give them a description because so many times, even for women, the men want to fix it, not because they think you're broken, but because they don't want to see you hurt.
mhm,
And so it's one of those things for me, realizing that that's what his intentions were to protect, to provide, to support in all air and fix it, right? So when I
mhm.
needed him to just listen and to be understood for me, it was telling him that knowing what I needed helped him fulfill that need for me, if that makes
Mm,
sense. Because
yeah.
there are so many people in your life right now, I guarantee you, that actually want to see you succeed and want to support you, but they don't know how. And if you don't know, they can't help you. So I
Right.
think the next step of self-care, like point 2, is knowing myself and actively being like, hey, I need you through communication. So good
Mm,
communication is the second
yeah.
point. The third point, I do try to keep a very physical lifestyle. I'm not a crazy, marathon runner or anything like that, but I'm definitely active and taking good care of my body. And so I think that's a huge part. I don't know if you want to include that with, good foods and all that kind of stuff, right? Supplements, but I feel like all of that goes without point. So I think as a whole in my self care, it's keeping the main pillars, which for me are God, family, and business priority,
Mhm,
and having that scheduled through my life. So in the morning, it's saying morning prayers, spending time with my sons, and then tackling business. I don't
mm,
open business until after 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. I just don't.
mhm.
And I'm okay with that. I realize that my Zooms are only during nap time, hence why we have this at a very strict time. It's one of those things where I've made those priorities. So I'm not stressed about my children and my priorities because I actually honor them first by how I'm approaching my business. So I think, for so many people, it's going to be a different thing, which is why I can't give you just a do this,
Right.
because for you, it's going to be do that
Yeah,
instead. So I
exactly.
want to give you the framework on how I accomplish it. And those are the main components that I keep in mind in
Mhm,
order to take genuine good care of myself. Because if I don't, no one will. And you need to take that responsibility as well because you know what you need first. And
mhm.
that's why that's so important.
Yeah, that's great. And it's so key too about this new wave that we're moving into with healthcare about really being proactive and preventative. And
Yes.
that's part of that self care piece. We have to take the power because it's been taken away from us as far as like pharmaceuticals and traditional allopathic care, where it's like, okay, here's a
Yes.
pill, everything's going to be better. Well, that is band aiding. And it's the
Oh
same
my
way with
gosh.
self
Yes.
care. If you cannot
Yes.
be proactive about your self care, then nobody's going to do it for you.
I
So,
love how you paralleled that, Lulu. That was so
mhm,
powerful. So
yeah,
powerful. I hope you guys realize just that metaphor, yeah, put a Band-Aid on it. Like, is
Mhm.
that actually going to take care of it? No, if you don't clean it, there's going to be an infection. There's going to be something that goes bad and we're going to go
Right.
south. We don't
That's
need that.
yeah,
You don't
no
need that.
gangrene. Yeah, totally. Okay, so it sounds like that self-care and nurturing piece is such a huge component of your personal life, your family
Yes.
life, your business life, and it's all connected. And I think
Mhm.
that's what you one of your main points here is that it's not just, it can't be individual. You can't put it up on a shelf and be like, ding, that it has to be
Yep.
more connected. Okay, so we talked about that, and now I'd like us to kind of move into the transformation piece because I
Ooh,
you I really
yes.
like this part of what you do, and I think it's so important, especially right now where
Mhm.
people are on this like massive transformation, which we talked a little bit, but like
Yeah.
how when you're let's say you have a vision and you're
Yep.
like, okay, maybe I want to open a lollipop shop. I mean, whatever, but that's just an example.
I'd love to come to your lollipop shop. No, it's okay. Go
I
ahead.
know. Yeah, it'd be a healthy lollipop shop, everybody.
Oh, it'd be so delicious. I can
Right,
see
yeah.
it now.
So let's say you have this vision. How do you make the step for the transformation phase? Because is it like, full on, like I'm gonna go, or is it if there's some steps that you need to take? And that because that's a big key, and then maybe tying into your personal transformation
Yeah,
journey.
absolutely. I would love to. So, first off, there are a lot of great big leaders out there, and each and every one of them is going to tell you something different. So,
Mhm.
if you're listening to me right now, maybe I'm the person you need to listen to, maybe I'm not. And I'm okay with that. But the number one thing that I'm going to share is what I did, because that's what, if anyone would want to know what drove me, it's the way that I was living my life, and it drove me to make the choices that I did in my life and business as well. So I think the biggest thing for me, for you to know, is that I am a family. I have a family. I'm a wife and I'm a mother. And so my choices were driven more with security. So
Mm.
I did not burn the boats.
Mhm.
I did not burn the boats. I figured out how to build a raft and leave the boats behind, but know that they were there in case I needed them.
Mhm, backup.
And it's one of those things where like I said, everyone's gonna have a different opinion. The difference between me and another person that would not go all in is the fact that I was full in committed to the
Mhm.
outcome.
Mhm.
So there is a difference between going all in resources and options and all that kind of stuff versus the all in mentality on yourself. I
Mm.
took the bet on me every single time. I did not rely on other people. I was unfortunately scammed and let down by other people. So it really
Mhm.
brought me back to that just extreme responsibility of, if this is going to work, it's going to work because I did it. It's going to work
Mm.
because I put in the time, I put in the sweat, I clarified the vision, all of those things. It's because I did it. So it's like rowing your boat. It's not that you burned all of them, you
Right.
just took one and used it. So I think that that's the biggest thing in transformation that people forget today. It's not about the move you make, it's about the intention in the move you make and
Mm.
how you make it that matters. And
Right.
so I think that if people could get less caught up on burning the boats and chanting this and that, that's fine for the single guy that's got 30 grand sitting in the bank that he's not worried about anything. That's
Mhm.
fine. But
Mm.
when you have kids and you have medical bills and you have different things, like, that's not prudent. I would never, I do not encourage you to do that. I encourage
Mhm.
you to move forward in wisdom and in prudence, but yet realizing that opportunity may be dressed as work.
Mhm.
It may be dressed as work, and that's probably a good sign, because anything worth having is going to be like hard work. It's just
Mm.
going to be hard work, whether that's building up a clientele, a patient, aspect. Like, it is all going to be work, but it is
Mhm.
going to be so worth it. So when
Mhm.
it comes to transformation, it really boils down to the decision that you make between you and God to do whatever it is that He created you to do and fulfill the purpose that He's sent you to earth to do.
Yeah, finding your purpose and your vision, that's really key. And that I like what you said about the transformation is that, looking at what can that motivation piece is really key. What
Mhm.
motivates you, whether like you said, what is it your family? Is it your
Yeah.
finances? Is it your patience? Is it your health?
Yeah,
Is it your dream that you've had ever since you were two, or five? I guess two. You
absolutely.
can have dreams when you're two.
Some do. I know
Right.
they do. I don't know. I don't know what my 2-year-old's dreams
Right.
are.
Yeah.
Maybe I
Maybe
should check
five
into
years old.
that.
That's when you really start like, I'm going to be this when I get older. Yeah. And so I think that that's really key. And then what have you, since you started your business, what's been the
Yeah.
biggest change that you've noticed in that transformation process? Like over because you started in 2019, is that what you said?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So over the past, 2 years or so, what's the biggest changes you've seen in yourself and in your business?
Ooh, that is such a good question. So number one, there's going to be a couple of points. Number one, I am an introverted extrovert, and I'm okay with that. I am an introvert and I need my time, I need my space, but I am amazing at networking. I love conversations. I love connections like this, and I am not afraid to bring my energy to the table because I thought it was something everybody had. It's not. So I think that's one thing, like embracing the fullness of who I am. That was a big one. So that in my introverted, extroverted state. Second, I think that I will go further with people. And the reason that I say that is because even now I'm a co-host of a podcast. I'm a brand partner with those same people. I don't have to do it all. I don't have to have all the answers. I am not a techie. I am not a financial HR guru. I'm not. I'm just not. And I'm okay. And I had to become okay with that. I used to think that I could serve everyone at the high level that I was committed to, because when I'm in 100%, 110%. But at the same time, I couldn't be the number one finance person when I was focusing on HR. And like, I was just like, wait a minute, no, I just got to focus on what I'm good at. And so I think that transformation was when I appreciated the gifts and talents that I brought to the table as valuable, and realizing that I actually did have something to contribute versus to dominate with. It changed my perspective on doing business, because I looked at everyone as a collaboration, an opportunity versus competition, and a roadblock, if that makes sense. So now I'm magnifying and I just did a tweet on this earlier today, magnifying other people because I'm honing in on my strength. And it allows them to amplify their strengths at the same time. It's just creating a winning perspective. And I think that has dramatically improved, but it was something that I never knew when I started.
Yeah, that's great. It is, and you can totally shift things. And when you have a collaborative team, we can't do it all as business
No.
owners, as family member, you just
If you
can't.
want to go anywhere worthwhile, guys, you're gonna need people by your side, not because you're not enough, but because you're gonna want to go alongside people. We're social beings,
Right.
We're humans, like we're human beings. We want to be together, we want to grow together, we want to impact together, and we can do more when we do it together. And so trying to, yes, embrace that like incredible responsibility mentality of like, I'm gonna take the bet on me, while living in harmony, that because I showed up as the best version of me, now I get to work with these incredible humans and do this for long term.
Right. And we can let other people shine in the things that
Yes.
they do, because we all have our
Absolutely.
own individual aspects, which we're great at. And,
Absolutely.
I don't want to be the person that's doing the job that I hate.
Nope.
I'm like, I'm going to hire somebody to do that, because I just actually just hired a new VA, and she's like,
Yay!
give me the list of everything that you don't want to do. I was like, okay, this. And it's so nice to have
Like
those
I
types
said,
of
what do we
things.
not want to do? What do we not like? Right? We're so
Exactly.
good at that. Oh,
Yeah.
it's so hilarious.
Yeah. So then focus on what we do want, and then somebody can take over what we don't want. That's great. Let's shift and talk about your book, The Limitless Expansion Secrets. Tell us about what it is and what was the inspiration. And it's co-authored, right, with some other people too. So tell us about that kind of like process.
Oh, for sure. So great question. I never considered myself a writer. So another comparison, like imposter thing, was that I didn't write decent copy. I wasn't, writing anything that people would want to read. So when I was asked to co-author a book, I was like, you've got to be kidding, right?
You're like,
Okay. Point being, I actually did amazing. I was so blown away, but it was because it was something I was passionate about. So when I hear of other people being like, I want to write a book as a portion of authority and, establishing
Mhm.
myself, make sure it's about something that you're passionate about or something that you are knowledgeable in, because
Mhm.
it will flow so much better than thinking, oh, this is what people want to read these days, so I better write this. Mm-mm. There
No.
are 7.7 billion people in the world. Somebody else will read your book if that's what you need to, put on the table. So
Right.
don't let that change you. But anyways, the main purpose of the book is Limitless Expansion Secrets. LES is we all want to work less. What are some of the secrets or tactics and tangible action steps that we have found throughout our business lives that we can pass on to other people? And the real
Mm.
big purpose of this book was because we knew here in 2020 people's businesses were changing dramatically faster than they could keep up with, and a lot of people were moving but not making any progress. And so
Mm.
we're like, what can we do to give back? It's very inexpensive on Amazon, literally just to pay for production. And it because we weren't looking to make a profit, we were looking to make an impact and give back, especially in a time of need.
Mm.
So the main purpose of this book is giving you the less secrets, because we want you to work less and amplify what it is that you're doing. And we broke it down into the 7 pillars of business. So it's super incredible because so many times people are like, well, what could this book have in there that I need? We all probably struggle in one area of business or another. I
Mm.
suck at tech. I suck at tech. God bless Bryce because he deals with my website. He fixes all my stuff. Like him and his team, like they've totally taken me under their wing. I'm okay with that. But that's where I would have been reading and being like, okay, who do I need to find to take care of this? Or what is it that I need to look for? What are the results that I need to see that
Mhm.
produce to know that they're quality, if it's delegating, like all those things, right? But the main point of it was that this book could help people in, either all aspects of their business or the aspect that they were having the most pain. So that's the
Mhm.
the real drive behind the book. Without going too far into detail, that was really the goal and mission, to give something, especially in this time of need, that could potentially help people where they're at to go to where they want to be.
Wow, that sounds fabulous. I love it. And love the 7 pillars of success. Is that what you call them? So,
7 pillars of business, actually. This business book is created just really focusing on how to create a or sustain a scalable business. So that's the
nice.
purpose of this book versus
Great.
topics of success. So yes.
Awesome. Love it. And how can people find it? On Amazon? Is that what you said?
Yes, Amazon is the perfect place to find it. And like I said, it's inexpensive. Buy it for someone that's struggling for, whatever area that they're struggling in.
Mhm.
It may have the answer, it may have the solution,
Yeah.
and it's very affordable. Sometimes they're like, "Oh, I need a course or I needed this." I hope you consider this as a revenue. We really wanted to just put all of our eggs into, one spot that you guys could have access to. So that's
Nice.
our hope with this endeavor.
Oh, great. What a wonderful gift. And tell us a little bit about how people can find you and your podcast.
Yes, oh, I would love to. Well, for those of you that don't know, I absolutely love Clubhouse. Clubhouse is my jam. That is where my fam is hanging out. And I'm so excited to be updating, just how I show up as a moderator and lead support there. I've had different paid moderating opportunities, but Clubhouse is my jam. You can connect with me through the link on my Instagram bio. If
Mhm.
you would like, that's super easy and accessible. Otherwise, I hang out on Instagram now because everybody on Clubhouse is on Instagram. So Instagram would be great. My handle is at Justine Mader HQ. And I would just be so humbled and honored to meet you, because if you're a friend of Lulu's, you're a friend of mine. And she brings just amazing people to the space. And you'll also see, by going to my profile, you'll probably see the podcast, which I am a co-host for. It's called the Virtually Limitless Podcast, and we really interview leaders from across the world. I had Sharon Lecter on not too long ago. We have James Whitaker, a couple other great people that have not only impacted industries, but lives of numerous people across the world. And we really try to bring them in, put them on the hot seat, and get some value. But they're all purpose driven. They're all incredible humans, so you won't be disappointed at listening to any of the episodes.
Nice. That sounds great. And I can't wait to listen to some more episodes. I was listening to some today. So fun. Yay.
Oh, that's so good of you. Bless your heart.
Yeah, well, I need something to listen to too. I'm, working in the background, which is great. I love podcasts for that because it's not, I
So
would say
good.
it's mindless because that's not what I mean. it provides great insight in for the background, the background noise,
Absolutely.
which I need for working. Cause sometimes I like music, but it's nice to have somebody talking, in the background.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, you're so right. And it's such a great way to do that. So I'm so glad
Mhm.
that we got to do this. And,
Yay.
it's something that we get to do together, and a part two, we get to amplify each other's podcast. So that's so awesome.
Yeah, totally. Okay. One last question for you today before we sign off, Justine. If you had
Yes.
an unlimited budget right now, what would you do to make the biggest impact on the planet?
Wow. That is an incredible question. And you were smart to leave that for the end. What would I do? Wow. I guess the number one thing I would do is try to find a way to love people where they're at.
Mhm.
So create an opera, because I think that that's the greatest gift in life. And I would try to create or facilitate an opportunity where everyone would be able to feel loved and appreciated. And I think, especially with COVID, there's so much of that
Mhm.
personal connection and
Mhm.
touch that's not been allowed. And if I couldn't do that, then I would do like a worldwide dental mission, something where everyone was taken care of and given kind of a reset on life. And the reason that I'm so passionate about that, you guys, to give you a little story, I have the teeth molds of when I was 10. They
Mm.
were so scary. My
Mm.
husband says that they could be used as Halloween props. So he's very encouraging. He did not know me at that time. It's one of those things where it really reminds me that every mess can turn into a message. And
Mhm.
so the smile that I smile with you today is thank God for the orthodontist hands that crafted the wires and made it all work. I wore the headgear, I put in the time, but every mess can become a message. And so if there was a way that I could do that through a love event, something in dentistry, or creating just a space for people to feel heard, I think that those are some of the key elements that we all are starving for in life.
Mhm.
And I would just love to quench that thirst, be that, change, and
Mhm.
optimize in any way that I can. But man, that's a good question. Dang, that's a good question. I love it.
Oh, great. Well, thanks, Justine. I love
Thank
that.
you.
I'll hold a space for that where everyone can have great dental care because that's huge, a huge piece of
Mhm.
what's missing in our healthcare and a huge piece of what is underlying a lot of chronic illness. So, I
Yes.
really think that is really
We
key.
could talk on that for a whole nother
I know,
episode, I bet.
right? Totally, totally. So, yeah, thank you for your time today, Justine. I
Thank
really love
you.
talking with you and I can't wait to share it with the world.
Yes, I can't wait to see you again, Lulu. Thank you so much.